Thank you, Chair. We've seen many iterations of this document, been through the process and the various iterations in detail, so I'm not going to speak very long on the matter. Suffice it to say that this is a document which is produced by a coalition of organisations, and it's a consensus document. So we always need to remember that each participant in the process, each authority effectively has a veto over any element. So it's never going to be the perfect document that we might like to see or that we might adopt if we were adopting it alone. And we work really, really hard to ensure that our views are reflected as much as possible in the document, but there is always that item. So we have it here, it has been through that process, and if there are concerns about it, it's not really the stage where we can go back and unpick and unravel, but there will be examination, and that is the place to take any concerns as this plan proceeds. So I just recommend to you to agree that we submit to the Secretary of State for examination.
Thanks very much, Mike. And if we're just having a look at page 21 of the agenda with those recommendations, the soundness of the document is very important as it goes forward for independent examination. We are asking for delegated authority to agree minor modifications prior to its submission, but clearly a substantive discussion is going to be around the opportunity for people to make comments. That's obviously for the broader public as well as part of the independent examination. Any comments from cabinet members? Karen?
Yeah, I think this has been through STV several times, and certainly we have made our reservations known about some elements of this. I think it is the stage now where it doesn't need to get off for examination, but I will be voting for it to be to go through reservation. But I do have reservations about it, so just have that in mind.
And there are other opportunities as been alluded to. Judith, any comments you would like to make on this? Sorry, rather put you on the spot to put the microphone. Yes, if you'd like to come and do that, that would be good.
Yes, thanks very much. And my referral that was looking to be here today, I did very much of the committee, but he isn't able to be asked for one of the officers to read out the following information about a local housing needs assessment, which has just been completed. So I'll just read out this statement. A local housing needs assessment has been undertaken to update the 2017 strategic housing market assessment analysis of housing type and tenure. The final report has just been received, as well as providing additional evidence for the examination of the support section 6 negotiations. It takes account of the latest data and definitions of affordable housing. Headline results are that the study confirms that the 58% affordable housing split in the central targets for affordable housing in the Greater Norwich plan is appropriate. And in addition to this, on the latest information, the study recalculates overall housing need using government standard methodology for the 2021 release of affordability data. This suggests a housing need of 39,440 for the plan period, which will help demonstrate that the housing requirement in the plan of 40,541 is appropriate to support economic growth and country's pressure for it to be increased. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Judith. That's for additional information. Right, Sandra, have you got any questions? Got any question?
I do. This will be my longest conversation tonight, I think, and I won't be opening up about this thing.
Okay,
It's
then.
really frustrating me and stuff. I mean, you may have important that it's contracted, and because I agree with Karen that it's quite severe reservation. And because we all agree that we cannot afford to release any further carbon, and the Greater Norwich Local Planning has delivering thousands of homes for mostly greenwood sites and along and close to improved road corridors, notably the A11, the A47, the west of Norwich and the NDR, which is intended to connect to the A47 via Norwich Western Link. Locating thousands of new homes close to new improved strategic road links will generate new car, van, lorry, and lorry journeys. Carbon emissions emitted from petrol and diesel engines will stay in the atmosphere for decades. Data shows Norfolk's substantial transport carbon emissions continuing to grow. Highways England acknowledged that the free A47 link schemes close to Norwich currently undergoing examination to increase carbon emissions. This is because the schemes are intended to allow traffic to grow, to include traffic from new developments delivered by the Greater Norwich Local Plan. So how can it be that the GNP can claim that the Greater Norwich Local Plan will mitigate carbon and the meet climate change targets that's set out in the first section of the plan? So how can we claim that we mitigate carbon emissions and meet climate change targets when delivery of the plan will generate new developments, new road traffic, and increase carbon emissions even further? So I guess overall, I just find it baffling that the assessment remains that the GNP is considered to be in line with legal requirements of achieving net zero, despite all the strong representations that you see in that report that have been made from the climate impact of various different aspects of the plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. I think what you can do is take assurance from the fact that there's an opportunity for independent examination, and the inspector, I know, will be setting very high standards around some of the climate change issues that you have raised. But with a major comments to your question, so I think those obviously will be suitably monitored. Any more? Yes.
So if you would brief, but yes, you know, this, particularly the South Norfolk Village clusters, which are going to be coming forward, you know, we should be building houses around infrastructure which already exists, not creating infrastructure with the purpose of building houses around that infrastructure.
This is a point I've made on many occasions. Building on an urban extension is a much more efficient way of developing short distances to travel and so on. So we'll see what the inspector makes of all of that. Okay, right. I'm going to move to the recommendations now. Thank you for those comments. Those are on page 11 over to page 12. Let's get this out of the traps and into that next part of the process. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. That's passed. Let's now move on to the home options policy, page 73 to 116, and that's in the name of Phil.
In these somewhat challenging times, the provision and allocation of good affordable housing by this council is of increasing importance. It is a limited resource, and as such we sometimes have to manage people's expectations. We are a council which continues to build new homes. Every year we lose approximately 140 properties under the right to buy. We are in fact often playing catch up. However, even though this authority still holds close to 15,000 properties, it is vital that we do everything possible to make sure that those in greatest need of social housing in Norwich have the best possible chance of being successful in obtaining it. Our allocation scheme of options has been designed on this basis. It's a very successful scheme used by ourselves and trusted by 14 housing association partners who also participate in the scheme. The scheme is designed to provide a consistent, transparent and fair way of allocating social housing. The improvements recommended in this report go further than ever before to ensure that our key objectives are met and our resources are, as is right, focused on those in the most need. The primary focus of the amendments is to help those families living in overcrowded homes or high-rise blocks. While I'm aware that the changes will result in a relatively small number of current applicants losing their priority banding, the need to effectively prioritise those families in the most difficult situations is the fair and right thing to do. I'm pleased that further enhancements are designed to expedite and move on through our hostel system, which will help us to meet strategic and corporate objectives to reduce rough sleeping and provide safe, secure accommodation to the most vulnerable. There are almost 500 supported hostel beds in Norwich, and it is important that we ensure smooth through flow for those residents who are ready to move on, which will in turn free up beds for rough sleepers and the homeless. The recommended changes will make this process more straightforward and efficient than ever before, something that must surely be commended. The policy changes are fully detailed in paragraph 16 or 6 to 13. Our housing options team does a difficult job, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for the work they undertake, their professionalism and the sensitivity in which they deal with often very complex cases. So the recommendations on page 73.
Thank you very much, Gail. Chris, any points you want to add?
Not really, just saying we've consulted on this policy, we've spoken to our partners, and we've learned lessons from COVID and lockdown, changing what's really what agreement, and there's a good consensus that these are the benefit of our clients. So
That's very helpful. Thank you. Carol, any questions?
Thank you, Madam. Page 85, paragraph 2.5.3. This is about the continuous residency for at least the last 6 months. How does this work if somebody's been domestic violence from another area, please?
if somebody's in domestic violence from another area, they will come from homelessness, which is a different part of the Housing Act, supersedes this. So come from homelessness, and you accept it as something you can assume will be the case, and then the rest of the use will be an automatic priority from now on, and that can't be accommodated through a direct lend into social housing without the options.
Any other cabinet members? Motions? Some?
I do have a question, or would like to ask some clarification on the change that families living in flats have their own garden regardless of what level the flat is on, would consider this a house now, whereas before they would be, if they're on, I think, second or third, they would be in a silver bed. That's quite a significant change, I think, and I would just like to clarify what it means to have their own garden, because I know that we've got a number of council housing flats that are 2 or 3 stories that kind of surrounding more or less communal gardens, which have a lot of their own problems. So I know that a number of families would not let their children play there because there's issues with needles, sometimes there, dog feces, there's issues with the neighbours living on the ground floor, essentially seeing it as their own garden. So I know that these communal gardens do have a lot of problems, and there are reasons why people don't let their children play there. So I'd just like to ask a clarification of what that means, having their own garden, whether that's actually allocated to the flat, first of all, and secondly, how we will look at those problems with the communal gardens to resolve them. I'm quite concerned about this change.
Thanks, Sandra. Did you want to come in, Chris?
Yeah, this change will benefit those clients who talk about the communal gardens. This change is designed to take away priority from those who have their own designated gardens. I feel alongside flats with semi-detached houses that have their own gardens, that have a small internal stairway. So those clients at the moment have the same degree of priority as the clients who are talking about the communal gardens and high-rise blocks. So this change is designed to help those clients. To mention that those in outside flats we now consider
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the question, Sandra. Any other comments at all? Anything from you, Gail, at all?
It's a good piece of work that's taken a long while to do all the consultation. It's been thought through, so I commend it.
Thanks very much. So let's look at the recommendations on page 73. Are we happy to agree with recommendations? Please indicate. Thank you very much. Right, let's move on then to the item, article for direction to the permitted development rights for conversion of offices to residential. And it says it all in the title of the report. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I want to say about this is that there are in the report two recommendations. And the second recommendation was put in there specifically because there had been uncertainty around whether the government was going to achieve changes to the wording of a particular paragraph of the NPPF, which sets out where Article 4 directions can be introduced. And so we were waiting for that and wanting to give ourselves the option not to proceed. But there has been a statement made by Robert Jenner on the 1st of July, setting out the government's intended change to the NPPF, and the reason for that was to announce the policy approach so that authorities like ourselves can take it into account when considering bringing in anything onto the full directions. And what that has clarified for us is that the risk and need for the second recommendation is no longer there. So we don't need to consider recommendation 2. There is only one recommendation, which is recommendation 1. So I hope that's clearly understood. If not, happy to answer questions on that end. Clearly, I won't make this a long presentation. Again, I'm trying to be thoughtful in the circumstances. So clearly, we want to protect our office space in the city, and we also want to understand, try to understand, as we see from the report, what the likely demand for office space is going to be post-pandemic. And there's been a lot of speculation, particularly in the media, about how working practices may or may not change. So we went back to Vanadis, who commissioned twice now to look into Norwich office accommodation and the demand for it and supply of it to look at trends. And you'll see in paragraph 14 what they have said in the latest report, the impact of the COVID pandemic on the office market was referenced to Norwich City. So I just pick up one bullet point from that, which I think really sums up pretty well the overall picture, which is where they say the pandemic is likely to be used by property owners to justify conversion of offices to residential on the grounds that office demand is in decline. But the best that can be said about this position is that it is unproven, driven by transient land values rather than well-established understanding of urban geography. And the city's valuable strategic stock space should not be gambled on a hunch. I think that is a key paragraph. We must not gamble our strategic office space. And also, let's be clear, when that space is converted into other uses for which it was not designed, it produces substandard accommodation. So there is that in the background here as well. So it's vitally important that the council takes this opportunity to protect its office space and not to allow potential damaging losses when it's not certain that this space will not be needed in the future for the well-being of the city centre economy as a whole.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's certainly part of the recovery plan, which has gone through council unanimously. That is part of that, with reviving and shaping of the city. Probably the Townsville money is for that purpose. The work we're doing, business improvement, district level stakeholders across the city centre, really without strong ambitions, and really cannot be derailed by the opportunities of developers to pursue a sectional interest in pursuit of profit. Anything to add, Judith?
Just to say that, as it says in the report, there's been a lot of us towards this loss for the last 5-6 years because of the rights of this. Obviously, there's a strong case for introducing such direction.
Any other cabinet comments? No, Sandra, anything on this one?
As representing my country, they had lots of issues. That's why the company.
Thank you. It's very supportive. Let's go to the recommendations. On page 117, two recommendations.
Let's say one recommendation.
One recommendation, I do apologise.
Recommendation one.
Recommendation one, thank you for that important correction. So can we vote on recommendation one, all those in favour? Okay, that's passed, excellent. Let's push that. Flying well up to Whitehall and getting a positive response. Right, let's now go on then to item 8, which is on page 133, and it's the NRA insurance and consideration of the fee score phase 3 outline business plan and that's all.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, the benefit of members, just point out I'm no longer director of NRL, but I obviously was involved for many years very happily with this organisation. I think this report shows, although NRL had its teething troubles, no question about that, it really has turned around. It's been really, and as this report has just been verified by several, as quite clearly makes clear, it's a very successful business plan to develop in the future. The recommendations are obviously that the council agreed to it, but the loan finance obviously allowing them to build even more homes, and obviously there are delegation authorities to officers and key cabinet members in regards to both private and public sector housing. I think, I believe Councillor Summer would speak perfectly for this item version. A great deal of credit needs to go to our officer, chief officer. He's just Dave Shaw, who's done a tremendous job with regards to this company. But I would just say to anyone, if you ever really want to see how effective we have been, just go and visit the site. I think anyone who goes there now can see a vibrant and successful community that has been developed, and which is a real credit to the City Council. And I have no doubt whatsoever that the years that and the effort that has been planned into NRL has been a great success. Therefore, I would urge members to agree the recommendation of this report.
Thank you very much, Paul. Dave, John, anything to add to the report? No? Okay, good. Cabinet members, Mike?
Just a few things to say. Obviously, I'm fully in support of this report and the recommendations. And the first thing I'd like to do is to just acknowledge the contribution that Councillor Kendrick has made as a director of the company over several years. A very important and valuable contribution that has greatly assisted and supported the turnaround of the company. And one of the things that I'm grateful to Paul for is that he was very clear when we were looking to refound our business model, when we were making the very important governance changes and data and monitoring changes, so that we got control of all of the activities of the company. That Paul was one of those who held his nerve along with the rest of us, and that has paid off because we've proved that we're holding our nerve and confidence in all the changes that we were making, all the improvements we were making, that we could make the company a real success, and that's what we've done. So thank you for that, Paul. And also thank you to Dave Shaw as well, not just for holding his nerve, but being very much an inspiration to the rest of us in terms of giving us confidence that we really could turn the corner. And of course, ably supported by Joseph, who isn't here tonight, but you would then pass on our thanks to him. And of course, as Paul said, Councillor Kendrick said, if anyone doubts that that was the right thing to do, they just need to go to the sites and see the quality of the homes that we're building, the community that we have created, and just look at the sales figures. They just fly off the shelf. We can't build enough of them to meet the demand. That's where we are. We're in a really, really good place. So obviously I commend this report and the recommendations. Very proud to be associated with the company.
Thank you, Mike. And Gary.
I'd just like to sort of reinforce what my thanks to my colleagues and the officers as well. I have been out on site, so I went out on site about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's amazing the community that is growing, and it's amazing the work that will be done. I mean, I'm obviously interested in it from the social housing aspect, but it's really exciting when you're standing there and you can see the vision. And I know Dave will drive that vision, and I've got every confidence that this will really be another sort of really good part of our housing stock and for private sale as well, because they just look wonderful, and I can see why they're so popular.
Good. Thank you very much, Gary. Sandra, any questions?
I do have a question. Seven's conclusion states that there does appear to be a positive direction within the business, which can only continue if supported through identification of sites which enables NRL to allocate central costs against a larger number of projects. So there are currently 3 identified sites for them worked up in the future projects for NRL. Considering that identifying and assessing sites is a lengthy process, what work is currently being done to scope out future sites or potentially consider diversifying NRL potentially refurbishment or retrofit?
Thank you for the question. I think we can do strong and positive answers on that. Who would like to pick that up? It's about pipeline housing supply. Graham, will you pick that up?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to pick that up because it's a question that's sort of we need to address. We're doing a number of bits of work to try and establish that future pipeline, what will work. As you're aware, the business plan that was approved by Cabinet in March identified 3 particular sites, which this is the first one that's come forward for this business case approval, which now needs to go on to council for approval. Beyond that, we're looking at approach to our own landlords in terms of our own asset management strategy that's now under review. There'll be a number of themes that will come forward through member processes later in the year, but arising from that process, we should be at least clear how we are going to go about looking at identifying the further sites from our own current landholdings that could potentially form part of the pipeline for the company depending on its future business plans and directions. And there's a couple of other sources that are probably also worth mentioning. Clearly, as part of the Thames Fund, while we were able to get £25 million of government money, one aspect of that is a revolving fund designed at taking forward long derelict sites effectively and bringing those forward for development. Again, I suspect that is a possible source for the pipeline should we choose to take the company in that very much regenerative direction. But there's further discussion needed for confirming how it's going to work. But there's certainly, I can describe it, a number of active lines required regarding that future pipeline that will be needed if the company is going to thrive.
Right, let's go to the recommendations, please. Page 133 to 134. Thank you. That's passed. And while I'm here, can I ask cabinet members if there will be any questions relating to this item on the exempt items on the agenda? That. Okay, thank you very much. Let's now move on then to page 141, which is in relation to managing assets, non-housing, managing for industrial estate. Paul, that's in your name.
Thank you very much. This is another project that has been ongoing for some time, which I've been involved in, and we're now in a position to actually present this report to this cabinet. First of all, I'd like to thank Mark Bradbury for his excellent work in working on this subject, producing this report. I'd like to just make 3 things clear beyond what is stated within the report. First of all, we do dispose of the industrial estate. We will remain a planning authority, and whoever was to take up the site have to work with us, ensuring that it maintains its planning integrity in terms of remaining an employment area. That is very, very important for us to all remember. It's not a question of equals speaking up complete control. Now, the County Council has decided to sell 60% of its share of the industrial estate, so we've been placed in a position where we have to make a decision, and that decision is presented to you here at this time. Now, of course, in coming to the decision that we have done, we must obviously realise that we want to sell our share, and it would actually help our financial position. That's quite clear about it. And equally, it would be very onerous if we were to try and buy out the County Council share. Furthermore, that this industrial estate does need a considerable amount of further investment to modernise it. It is actually in my ward, and I know it is frankly a little bit long in the tooth in terms of its usage. So I would hope that if we were to dispose of this to a responsible developer, that those developers would be able to seek the kind of funds, we're talking about a considerable amount of funds, to actually modernise this industrial estate and turn it into a first-class modern industrial estate, an employment area which would take up and develop kind of high-quality, well-paid jobs that we need in the city. The many graduates that exist in the city who need that kind of career progression. So I think on both points, both in terms of the financial situation of this council, but also the question improvement to the employment potential of the industrial estate. I believe I very much support these recommendations with the cabinet to agree.
Thank you, thank you very much, Paul. Any points to add, please? Mark, you okay? Question to cabinet members, any questions? Karen?
Thanks. This is going back to the Article 4 direction. Should this be developed into office space, could we make sure the Article 4 direction also covers that area in the future? Should it be approved?
There's a question, Karen, Mark?
The Article 4 direction, the current boundary, as I understand it, is in the city centre. The majority of the accommodation of the airport industrial estate is in the office use that we're looking at, which is Class E, G, changing this class order now. Class E, G, I think. The majority of the premises won't be industrial estate. Clearly, if there is redevelopment proposals, we'll get a planning application for that, and we have to consider restricted conditions on planning consent as part of that process.
Any other cabinet members? Sandra?
I do have a question. I'm just wondering whether it would be feasible to work on a master plan for the site before disposing of it, just so that we can ensure that the kind of council would like to see happens there, including some parts of the next development as previous. So this would clearly strengthen our role as the planning authority. Then I think that's really there will be an overage on it.
Okay, thank you. Two points. Mark,
Part of the airport industrial estate is allocated, so it's basically done, but beyond that, it still needs some rejuvenation. I would suggest that we do have the ability, the planning authority, to conduct a master plan to see the development, but I would suggest that's the best place to happen if it happens after the sale. We need to, if we try, we want to work, we're looking to sell the site freehold as a whole. The idea we have a freehold we can work with from an economic development perspective, but also as a planning authority to work with that, influence their proposals. The best way to influence their proposals is not to impose something on them beforehand, in my view, is to work with them to develop their proposals after sale. The other advantage of doing that is we don't hinder the sale by the council receipt doing so. And in terms of an overage, we're not placing an overage on, we're selling the estate as an investment opportunity. Doing so, putting an overage on will simply reduce significantly the return for council receipt.
Much. Thank you very much. Paul?
Yes, can I just address this question of the overage clause? Now, an overage clause is useful in some ways for the airport, and there's I believe there's an overage clause that if it was to be developed for housing, then we would also expect some well, if it was to be given over, actually, that's probably highly questionable, then it would be legitimate for us to expect some compensation back. But in this case, it is an industrial estate. And if the developers do put in a considerable amount of investment, then obviously they will expect a good return on that investment. I think quite rightly so. I think that should benefit the state and actually make it more viable in terms of more modern developments, especially in terms of the high-tech industries. So this isn't a suitable place for an overage clause. I very much agree with our ground thing, but only would considerably reduce our sale potential.
Thank you very much. If there are no more questions from officers, should we go to the recommendations, which are on page 141. Those indicate in favour of these recommendations. Thank you very much. Having passed that, can I ask if there will be any questions any member would wish to ask on the local item? Thank you. Let's move on then, and this is the report from the scrutiny committee. James Rod is not here this evening, but Paul, this is your portfolio.
Yes, I can do report in comparison obviously to the chair of the scrutiny, which is here because obviously he attended all the particular meetings. You have the report that you can it's quite a reasonable and acceptable report, so I would urge members to approve it.
Okay. Right. So we've had the report, and we have to accept it. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Let's then move on to item 11, which is in my name. So this relates to a delegation to award a contract for Green's own grant retrofitted external insulation. The reason for the delegation is actually to get the development up and underway to reach a tight deadline. On page 154, the target for the funding will be 50 private sector homes in Norwich, external wall installing external wall insulation, and it's targeted at a group of residents who will benefit financially from the delivery of this grant. This is obviously government money and green homes scheme. We do need to make sure we've got somebody to be able to deliver those projects. And I'll just pass over to Rachel. Just to add additional points.
Yeah, just to say, so those homes are all residents that own fuel property, and we expect to see significant bill savings of about 50%, and also quite a lot of carbon savings from it as well. And it's all fully funded by government grants, so the council won't be expected to spend any of our own resources on it.
Cabinet members, Karen, and then Gail.
Yeah, this has previously been in my portfolio, so I'm following this quite closely. So I know how hard Rachel has been working under a lot of pressure at time team, and I just really wanted to thank her for the amount of work she's done on this. It's fantastic. It really will help people over the winter. I believe there's a non-standard construction on the Rachel, so they are, they can't put council wall installation stuff, so this is really beneficial for those people. So I think that Rachel will
I'm not sure that's an honest. Again,
Thank you for your work, and I just want to take the point which I keep making is that, you know, the government gives us very much time to spend it with this money. They expect us to spend quite a lot of time bidding for it. So it's a tight time scale. So best of luck with that one, I'm sure you do.
the companies, the more cabinet members, Sandra?
Quick question following on from the last. So there seem to be some indications that the Green Homes Grant will be reinstated in a revised form, which may put more emphasis actually on delivering the energy efficiency grant. So I was just wondering whether there's been an update about it and what forward planning we're doing to be able to.
Thanks, Sandra. Rachel, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, just to say that the Green Homes Grant is also known as the Local Authority Delivery Scheme. It's also known as the Sustainable Water Competition. It's two different names, and the government has announced some future funding, but we are aware of it, and we are working on it, and we're hoping to take advantage of all and every bit of funding that comes in. So anything that they announce, we will be bidding into.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Karen?
Yeah, thanks. Well, one of the problems with these government announcements is that they have, as Gary said, very limited time, and unfortunately they're not long term. So by the time the work needs to be done, the companies are slowly going out of business. So it is the government really do need to make these longer term projects rather than constantly changing them, because it's very difficult for councils, it's very difficult for businesses to deliver these services.
I was once asked a question after giving the talk about what the difference was between Whitehall and local government in terms of policy, and I thought about it just for a moment and thought to myself, well, actually, local government thinks for the long term, local councils think for the long term, and this, this scheme, which is so important, really in terms of central government, as having false starts, would benefit from that approach. But I'd also say, of course, as a council, we have a superlative record in getting funding for a whole raft of initiatives, and that's a tremendous credit to our officers. Okay, I think we're probably happy to accept the recommendation. We'll need to put our hands up for cabinet. Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. Let's then move on to item 12 on page 157, and this is the award of a contract for structural and civil engineering consultancy services. Over to you.
Papers to be delegated to the board in the water contract structural and civil engineering consultancy. It's about fees, advice and design. So that we can maintain our house and stock in good condition, there has to be an ongoing programme of property assessments, repairs and maintenance as appropriate. This is the planned work stream. The successful supplier will work closely with NPS Norwich Limited to identify and deliver this work. The consultants will prepare the reports, justify their conclusions, and in some cases provide a part of work service or supervisory role as works progress. Overall responsibility for the delivery of the project is with NPS Norwich Limited. However, sometimes it's necessary to respond quickly and effectively to urgent situations. For example, when properties have been affected by such things as flooding, subsidence or fire, this forms a responsive work stream, and it will be the responsibility of the successful supplier to work closely with NPS Norwich Limited to deal with these situations as they arise. It should be pointed out that the current contract expires on the 31st of July 2021. Unless this means that we will be out of contract for approximately 1 month. However, it has been confirmed that the request for services during this period can be dealt with by the incumbent supplier via an exemption request, provided the value does not exceed 50,000. This exemption has been greatly approved. The new contract is proposed to start on the 1st of September 2021 for a 4-year period. Will in effect be a 2-by-2-year contract with an initial 2-year term with the option to extend for a further 2 years depending on performance and budget. The procurement process is set out in paragraphs 8 to 12, and the closing date for the tender returns is in fact today. The tenders will have to be evaluated and the winning supplier should be known by Friday the 16th of July 2021. Cabinet was just a little bit early for the results, so hence the need for approval to delegate the water contract. The cost of the work is estimated to be 200,000 per annum and will be funded from the HRA structural repairs budget, which was approved in February of this year and will go through the annual budget setting process each subsequent year. We do not have the expertise to carry out this work in-house or by our joint ventures, so I move to the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Chair. Neil, anything to add? Nothing to add. Any other public comments? Yeah, Karen?
Will there be any provision for a grant clause in this contract if it's not, you know, the political agreement respecting?
But that's why it was described as a 2-by-2-year contract, so after 2 years, we can look at the performance and the budget, depending on the budget, we can carry on with another 2 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, okay. Sandra?
I was just curious to know why the tender went out so late, and which they applied.
Answer to that is just pure work. But we missed it on my head. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to the recommendation, please, which is on page 157, important piece of work. Thank you very much. Okay, passed. Can we know, and there was a green paper that went with this?
No,
That's the next one, is it? Yes, I thought it might be, yes. Certainly. Right, so having agreed that, then let's go on to the next report, which is item 14, page 169. No, hang on. 163, sorry. I do apologise. Yes, 160. Contract for development of the former King's Arms Public House site, 100 Maple Street. That's in GL.
It's a great pleasure to bring this report to you toward a contract for the development of the former King's Arms Public House site. This all started with the compulsory purchase order in 2020 after some sterling work undertaken by my colleague Councillor Starlight within his portfolio. It was the site of the former King's Arms Public House and has been derelict for a number of years. It became a focus of antisocial behaviour and lighting. It was quite simply an eyesore in the blight of the community. As the legal process of the compulsory purchase order proceeded, design work was undertaken with the objective of securing planning consent. Title for the deed was vested with the council in December 2020, and in that same month, planning consent for 5 houses for the HRA was also granted. The council was also able to purchase the neighbouring property at 42 Glenmore Gardens, a former council home sold under right to buy. This has enabled us to incorporate part of that garden of that particular property to provide much better access and development of the former pub site. The same dwelling and the remaining garden is now part of the council's stock. All dwellings are designed on a family first basis to help reduce energy usage and thus build significant tenants, with a target of A rating for energy performance. All dwellings are at or above nationally described space standards and meet part M4(2) for accessibility, which is broadly speaking equivalent to a lifetime fitness standard that allows for future adaptations and wheelchair access. In March 2021, Broadland Housing Association was appointed as a project manager and development agent. Work then commenced to prepare the construction tender. The tender return date was the 1st of June 2021, with the the evaluation being led by the Norwich Housing Association and their appointed subcontractor acting on behalf of the council. The tender evaluation is now complete and details are within the exempt report tabled at this meeting. The reason for the exempt report is explained within paragraph 9. It should be pointed out that Norwich Housing Association is acting as our agent, but these will be 5 housing homes to be let at social rent. After consultation with housing options and to leave housing need, the mix on this site will be 1 5-bed house, 3 4-bed house, and 1 2-bed bungalow to meet the needs of the disabled or older tenants. It is a very small development, but will provide much needed good quality homes of a size that is in short supply. I did see the headline in the press about costs increasing, but I should stress that this is not unique to this site and is being experienced in developments across the country. There is both a shortage of supplies and labour, with, for example, timber prices rising by 80% in the last 6 months. I'm sure that we will all eagerly look forward to the start on site and more to the point of completion of this development. This should be seen as a marker to other stalled sites. The process of compulsory purchase is not a quick one, but as a council, we will, when appropriate, take this course of action. So I move to the recommendation on page 163, but then people might want to talk about it with the exempt report.
Okay, thank you very much. Andrew, anything to add?
I think just to say this site has been a blight on the community for well over a decade, if not longer. We undertook action to demolish the site with the landowner. We had to kind of force his hand to do that, and still nothing was coming forward. So I think it's just to recommend that we're actually taking this action.
The benefits are clear from exercising these powers, so everyone tenacity is important. It may encourage others. Any other questions from Kevin, colleagues, Sandra? No, nothing from you. Let's go to the recommendation. Then on page 163, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Now let's go on to item 14. This is the specialist land improvement associated structural works.
This contract is an appointed contractor to deliver structural repairs that arise unexpectedly, such as subsidence, flood, fire, or something that sometimes hits the headlines of Norwich seaports. It's about maintaining our stopping the condition and protecting our residents. The contractor must be able to respond quickly and effectively and provide value for money. They must be competent with the capacity and skill set to do the work. By having one specialist contractor to call upon, the service should be more efficient and easier to access. The contract period is for up to 4 years, consisting of an initial 2-year term with the option to extend for a further 2 years depending on performance and budget. The cost of the work is expected to be $500,000 per annum, and works will be funded from both capital and revenue budgets, which were approved by Cabinet and Council in February of this year. The HRA ones. The tender evaluations are being now complete, and there should be an exempt report naming the successful supplier. The item has to be extended as a initial notification to award process to the successful supplier, subject to approval will be within the 10-day standstill period. It is important to emphasise that we aim to establish a contract enabling the delivery by a single supplier of all the types of special structural repairs, should make for a far slicker and more effective service. So again, I move to the recommendation, but noting there is an extended report.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this? Any comments from you, Neil, at all? Thank you much. Anything to add? Sandra?
So very good question. I'm curious to understand what criteria you use to divvy up the percentages for price and quality, especially because we've seen 2 reports tonight, one with 140 prices and quality, whereas another with 70 price and quality.
Change your budget reports, Sandra. Neil, did you want to pick that up?
I don't think there is a standard application to the percentage between quality and price. We tend to follow the method that we used previously. It's always worked and helps us accept them.
Let's then move to the recommendation on page 169. Do you indicate in favour? Very much. Having agreed that there is a green paper as Gail alluded, will we have any questions on that when we move it over? Okay, thank you very much. So now we go to Article 15, which is an exclusion of the public.